Hi guys, I'm Ivory. Today's video is going to be a 2-day wear test on the IT Causemetics Your Skin But Better Oil-Free Matte CC Cream. This is obviously not the full size. I was ordering something on Sephora and there was a promo code if you use like oil-free or something like that, then I could get a sample size of this foundation. So that is why it's so tiny. This is so cute, by the way. I wish all foundations had a miniature size just like this because I often just want to review and try foundations, but I can't justify having so many foundations because then I forget about older ones as I collect new ones. But if everything came in this size, I wouldn't feel so guilty having so many foundations, you know what I mean? Like I already said, this is the matte version. They have an original formula. It was a huge hit. I believe it's their #1 bestseller. I have not tried it for myself, but they came out with a matte version because it did so well. For anyone that's new, I typically have very oily skin. In fact, all of my wear tests up until today have been focused on oily and acne prone skin. So I'll put up in the cards a playlist of all the other foundations that I reviewed. But because it is getting a little bit colder and I have been using Curology for the past year, my skin has gotten a little bit more combo. So in this video, I will say like I do have some blemishes, like I still am a little bit acne prone, but as far as skin type, I would say I'm teetering somewhere between combo and oily. So if you're any of those skin types, my videos still will be helpful for you. And if you're not those skin types, well, my videos may still be helpful or at least entertaining to you, so I don't know, consider sticking around. So before we get into the review, I want to break down each of the 2 days because I don't do the same thing on day 1 and day 2. If you're already familiar with this format, I'll put a timestamp somewhere on the screen so that you can skip this whole spiel. Essentially today, Essentially today, day 1, half my face I'll be using primer, the other half I will be just putting the foundation on my bare skin. In addition to that, half the face I'll be using a sponge and then the other half I'll be using a brush just to see how the product applies with 2 very common applicators. And then depending on what works well for me, I will use that information and apply it to day 2. And then also on day 2, I'll be applying loose setting powder underneath the CC cream. That is something that I have learned to help prolong oils from coming through. But like I said, I am combo right now. That is something that I did when I was very oily. So I'm changing it up a little bit. I'm only going to be applying loose setting powder to half my face just so that we can see a side-by-side comparison. And then also on day 2, I will be showing you what the foundation looks like in natural lighting. And just in case you wanted to see something specific, I will add timestamps in my description box below. So feel free to skip around because I don't want anyone wasting their time here. All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to first go in with primer. Like I said, I'm using the L'Oreal Infallible Matte Lock Primer, and that's going on half the face. And I'm going to first apply it to all the areas that I usually get oiliest, and then I'm going to spread it outwards to the rest of the face. So since this is the sample size, I know the full size bottle has a pump, but this one doesn't. I'm just going to squeeze what I feel like is an appropriate amount for half a face, and I think that should do. On this side, I'm going to use a sponge. Usually I get more coverage with a sponge, and because I have a blemish here, I want more coverage on this side anyways. Oh my god, it's too dark. Oh my god, what shade did I get? I got the shade tan. Okay, don't get tan if you're my shade, because now I look offensive. See, this is why I hate online shopping. First of all, the mini sizes that they had, they only had like 4, and I didn't want to get the shade below this because if something is too light, I judge it way more harshly than if something is too dark, because I only had one shot, one opportunity to get this right.
One shot, one opportunity.
All right, so this is one layer of the foundation, and it actually is really good coverage. Like, there is no redness peeking through. I'm gonna put the same amount relatively. I mean, I didn't measure, it's not an exact science. And on this side, I'm gonna be using a brush. I'm using the Sigma Round Kabuki, which is the F82. Okay, so this is one layer of the foundation. I actually don't think it looks too bad. Hopefully it doesn't oxidize, but I know I can fix this. Like, don't look at the incomplete picture yet. Give me a minute, I can convince you. The sponge side, way better coverage. This is the worst side, and everything is covered up. Like, I don't even think I really need to go in with a second layer, maybe just some key points. But for the most part, I'm satisfied. Whereas this side, even though this is the better side, there was way less redness. I can still see things peeking through, right down on my chin as well. I can still see my discoloration. And I gave each side pretty much the same amount of product. So if you're looking for more coverage, the microfiber sponge is the way to go. This one is from Juno & Co, by the way. I'm gonna go ahead and add a second layer. I really don't think the sponge side needs it, but I'll just add part of this and just kind of focus it on little areas that I think may need just a little bit more love. But the brush side for sure needs a little bit more coverage just to match this side. Although this side, like, I like it, like, it's nice, but they're not even, so we have to fix that. All right, so this is the second layer, definitely full coverage as they claim. If you did just one layer, like if you're a one coat type of person, I would say this side is teetering between medium full, but this side was medium full to full. I'm reading off the box, but it is supposed to be full coverage, so it definitely is. It also says right here, it's supposed to be a natural matte finish. Definitely more matte than natural, I would say, but it's closer to velvet matte than it is to natural matte to me. It also has an anti-aging hydrating serum. Awesome. And it has SPF 40, which to me is amazing. I love when my products have SPF in them. I use SPF every single day. I say that all the time. Like, I'm becoming annoying about the SPF thing. And this is the sample size, but if you wanted the full size version, it is 1.08 fluid ounces and retails for $39.50. However, there is a smaller version of that. It will be bigger than this, and that has 0.4 ounces and retails for $15.50. So just for reference, this is 4 milliliters, and then the middle size, the one that's $15.50, that is 12 milliliters. So it'll be 3 times bigger than this. And then the full size, the one that's basically $40, that one is 32 milliliters. So it's 7 times the size of this one. Wait, not 7, 4 times 8 is 32. 8 times the size of the sample size. Oh my God, I was a math major. That was really embarrassing. I'm gonna fast forward the rest of my face on camera. As always, all of the products that I use are gonna be in my description box. I'm gonna skip the eye portion though, because I don't think that has any relevancy to the wear test. But I don't know, let me know if you want me to keep the eye makeup tutorial in. I know some people just wanna see it just to see it, even though it has nothing to do with the review, but no one has complained yet, so I assumed it was okay. All right, so the whole face is done. Everything went on super smoothly, no complications. The foundation itself looks so good on my skin everywhere. You know, like I have a couple of dry patches in my nose. It's extra textured here. There's a lot of different terrain on my face, and every single place that I look, it is holding on to it really well. It's not clinging in my dry patches. On my acne, it looks really good. Like it's like camouflaging it. It's not emphasizing the texture on my face. It's staying very nice and put together. So I think I'm gonna wear this foundation for 9 or 10 hours today. I'm not sure, but I will check in around the halfway point to show you how it's looking. All right, so we're at the 5-hour mark. Oil-wise, I feel like this foundation is doing amazing. I don't feel like I'm shiny at all. In fact, I feel like it looks better now than it did when I first finished up my makeup. The cheeks have held together perfectly. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. There are a couple of small areas that are a little less than perfect, and I'll zoom in a second. But overall, I'm extremely happy with what's happening so far. As far as this was the side with no prime, no, this had primer. I don't see a difference. If there is a difference, it's not enough for me to notice it. So right now, I mean, we'll wait 5 more hours, but right now there is little to no difference as to whether or not primer actually helps in this case. So getting up close, okay, so a little bit of foundation rubbed off right here. I was giving my doggy kisses on her face because she's such a good girl and she needed to know. So I was giving her lots of kisses and it rubbed off a little bit here. So that was my doing. This is the stuff I do during quarantine. I have makeout sessions with my dog. There was this one day where I was really bored, so I tried to see if I could do my everyday routine without using my opposable thumbs. And then one day I tried to teach myself Morse code, and that was more or less, no, that was a fail. That was an absolute fail. But I might come back to that because I feel like it could be useful for what scenario. It hasn't come up in the 28 years that I've been living, but it could come up. So I'm definitely gonna come back to that one. So there's a little bit of foundation missing right here in the upper lip area. On my chin area right here, like right where my lower lip is, there's a little bit of cracking happening. I'm being very nitpicky because everything else looks so good. So I'm really going into the areas that are just like a little bit less than ideal, but it's still like, it's fine. Like I'm just being annoying, but there's just a tiny bit of cracking happening. And same thing right here in my T-zone. It's not settling as smoothly, but I will admit that this area is very textured. So I expected this to happen because this happens all the time with my foundations, but it still looks really good. It just, you know, like I said, compared to everything else, it's the least good. It is starting to settle a little bit right here in my forehead crack. It's not a big deal, but I had to point it out. On my nose, it's holding together really good. It's not being weird in the sides of my nose where it's a little bit drier, and it's not separating or like super oily or greasy. So other than a few couple of minor imperfections, this foundation is doing really well so far. That is it for 5 hours. I will see you in about another 4 or 5, and at that time I will tell you my final thoughts for day 1. Okay, we have reached 10 hours of wear time. I still don't think it looks that bad. I mean, yes, I am a little bit shinier, but I mean, if I had to choose between blotting and not blotting, like I would be okay with either. Like I could blot, but if I didn't have blotting sheets, I'm not that mad about it. This was the side with primer, and I really don't see a difference. I don't have highlight or anything on, just by the way, and there are certain areas like the high points of my cheeks where I can tell if the primer helped. It doesn't look like it did. I also don't don't feel like it made it stay together better. Like they look neck and neck. So from what I can see, I think you're good with or without primer. You don't need it for this foundation. So getting up close, the chin area, it doesn't look great. This is my doing though, because I ate and like I touched it and I, you know, rubbed off on it. So I believe that the coverage that was lost is my doing, because everywhere else that I didn't touch has stayed in place. Like these cheeks, they're a little bit shiny, but the coverage, it's all still perfect. There's really no separating of any sort on my cheeks or my forehead for that matter. It all looks really good. On my nose, it looks pretty good, especially for 10 hours of wear. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Yeah, definitely the chin area is the worst part of this. And then if anything, the nose, I guess, is the second worst, but it's like worst of the best. Another thing I wanted to comment though is even though I've been wearing this for 10 hours, it feels really light, especially nowadays with quarantine. I do not wear makeup very often, if at all. So when I do wear makeup, I really feel it. For that reason, not only can I not handle a ton of makeup on my face, but I also can't wear it for too long because it feels heavy. I'm gonna go ahead and blot half my face just so that we can see a side-by-side comparison. The ones that I'm using are from Amazon. They're not my favorite, so I'm gonna link the ones that I actually prefer. All right, so I only used one sheet for half my face. Usually I use 2 to 3 for the entire face. Getting up close, you can see like my nose area, it doesn't look great. Like the blotting kind of emphasized this area. The cheeks, they look good. They lost little to no coverage. That's not a surprise to me. Usually when I blot, the cheeks always stay pretty much they stay the exact same, more or less. Chin area, I lost a little bit more coverage. And then on my forehead, I don't think I really lost any coverage. I think it looks pretty much the same. It's just less shiny. So with this foundation, I guess only the cheek area, the forehead area, I'd be okay with blotting, but I would just avoid the nose area because it seemed that it picked up more foundation than the rest of the face and it just left it looking not that great. And same thing on my chin, although I already had lost a decent amount of coverage, I would just go maybe a little bit lighter, but as far as the nose, I would probably avoid that altogether. So my final thoughts for day 1, I definitely preferred the sponge. I'm going to be using that on day 2. Just to reiterate, primer made no difference in this case, so you could probably skip it. Overall, I feel like it held up really well for 10 hours especially. I stayed matte for a decent amount of time, and even when I was shiny, I feel like it held together really nicely. I'm really excited about this foundation. I haven't been excited about a foundation in a very long time, so this is a nice feeling. I want to save all my final thoughts to the end of this video so that it's not super redundant, but so far I really like this. That is it for day 1. I will see you tomorrow. Okay, it is day 2 and I am in my beauty room. This isn't the natural lighting segment, by the way. I'm just getting ready in my beauty room, but I have to get ready here and I have to get ready very soon because today my husband is getting LASIK surgery. The place is about an hour away and it's raining, so I think we have to leave even earlier. So I really have only about 40 minutes to get ready, which seems like a lot, but I don't know. I'm talking, so I kind of have to rush this. But on day 1, I remember primer really didn't make a difference, so we're just gonna skip that step today. I'm gonna go in with powder next. I said half the face I would use powder, so I'm going in with the Dermablend loose setting powder, and I'm gonna take a puff and I'm just gonna push that into the skin. And it doesn't have to go everywhere. In fact, I'm not putting it everywhere because this held together pretty well. So I'm kind of just focusing it on the areas that I'm normally oily and then leaving the other areas. So basically the outer perimeter has been untouched. I'm next gonna go in with foundation. So I'm just gonna, I don't know, is that enough? Well, we'll see. I don't want to add a ton of foundation today, only because I don't know if I'm going to be wearing a mask. I don't know if they need me to pick Steve up when he's done with surgery, like actually walk him to the car, or if he's allowed to walk to the car. But just in case I have to go into the building and wear a mask, I don't want to have like a full face and then ruin the foundation. And also today, it's just way too early for full beat. My God, I really am not a morning person. I think you can tell because my voice is like extra manly, but I've always hated mornings ever since I was a kid. And even throughout college when it was my responsibility to get to class and I had to commute an hour and a half to get to Chicago, I would sleep in as much as humanly possible. And I also really don't like morning people. Like when people are super chipper to me in the morning, especially my husband, bless his heart. He doesn't wake up super early anymore just because he works from home. But before he would wake up really early, and then the minute he saw my eyes open, he'd be like, "Good morning, how are you? I missed you. Did you sleep well?" I'm just like, ew, what are you doing? Why are you being so happy? It's morning. Do you know that? Like, why are you happy? All right, so this is one layer of foundation. I think I'm gonna stick to one layer because the coverage is pretty nice. As far as like the side with powder, sometimes having powder underneath can make the foundation not lay very nicely, and I'm not getting that issue at all, which is great. Both sides look the same. I'm gonna do the rest of my face right now. I'm using the exact same products that I use on day 1. The only difference is I might, depending on how much time I have, I might use a different eyeshadow palette. I was planning on using the Modern Renaissance, but that's the only difference. All the products are still the same. So at least I think for this check-in, I'm done. So I'll try to check in around the halfway point depending on what time we get home. And at that check-in, I will be in like full natural lighting. So see you in a couple hours. Okay, so I just filmed this whole section right now for the last 25 minutes only to realize that my microphone was off. This is why I hate waking up early in the morning. It just throws off everything else about the day. So we are doing this again. I am in natural lighting right now. I have a window right here that is shining natural light through me, to me, on me. Usually I have better natural light in my living room, so I did do my close-ups there and I'll insert them in a second, but I can't film in my living room right now because it's right next to my bedroom and my husband is in there resting after eye surgery. I think the surgery went well. I mean, the doctor told him that it went perfectly. I wasn't in the building with him, but I didn't want to disturb him, so my natural lighting is going to be in the office today. At this point, we are at the 7.5 hour mark. This foundation looks so good. I actually think it looks better today because I only have one coat. Usually when you have less foundation, at least in my experience, the foundation wears better because if you have less foundation, there's just less product to bunch on you, to get cakey and stuff like that. This was the side with powder underneath. I don't really see a difference in terms of oil control. I think both sides look great, but of course everyone's skin is different, and as you know, my skin has been changing a little bit, so I encourage you to do your own trial and errors. If a foundation is pretty good but there are some areas where it's just like a little less than perfect, try putting powder underneath. Just have fun with it. Try different new things. But in my case, powder did little to no difference, and everything is staying together really well. Nothing has moved. Everything has stayed put. There's no splotchiness. It's not cakey. It feels super lightweight. The chin is holding together way better because I'm not meddling with it like I was on the first day. So at this point, I think we can wrap it up. I've pretty much already made up my mind since day one, but day two really solidified it for me. I love this foundation. Let's break it down to the pros and the cons. So the pros about this foundation is the coverage is really great. I was able to get all of this covered in one layer. And given that this is a high-end product, so it's expensive, you're gonna get more uses out of it, which is great. There's lots of key buzzwords that I like, you know, the SPF, hyaluronic acid, antioxidants, anti-aging, lots of different good elements that are put into this foundation as well. It lasted really well on me. 10 hours is my minimum, which it did do. And usually by the 10-hour mark, I'm ready to take off my makeup. Like, it is dragging me down. And don't get me wrong, I definitely felt the foundation like weighing me down a little bit, but it didn't weigh me down nearly as much as other foundations. Also by the 10-hour mark, yes, I was noticeably oilier, but even leading up to that, I never felt like I was overly oily or overly greasy, which often happens to me. So the fact that it was able to keep my oils at bay is awesome. The pros, no, I just did the pros. The cons. The cons about this foundation, one, it didn't do that well with touch-ups. It was pretty all or nothing. Like, some areas seemed unfazed, and then other areas like my nose, I remember it looked kind of rough. So I would be a little wary of touching up with this foundation. And the second thing is the price. It is an expensive foundation, but they have a smaller bottle, and that one is $15 versus $40 that the full size is. So if you were gonna try this foundation, I would go with a smaller bottle first, just in case it doesn't work out. Then you don't feel so bad that you spent $40 on a product. Like, you only spent $15, which isn't as bad. All that is to say that the pros in this situation definitely outweigh the cons. So if you are looking for a new foundation to try, I completely recommend this one. But that is it for this review. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and feel free to comment down below what foundation I should try next. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.